bombs went off at about 2:45 on Monday. There were 3 people killed in the bombings. Later, an MIT police officer was shot to death. I believe there were about 260 people injured, including a couple of dozen who lost limbs, partially, fully, sometimes more than one limb. On Thursday night, the 2 suspects, the brothers, shot an MIT police officer who was on patrol. He was sitting in his car, shot him to death. They were trying to get his gun, but they couldn't get it out of the holster. They then took somebody else hostage, made him drive them around. He escaped because they stopped to get gas and he ran away. They then drove to the Boston suburb of Watertown and had a horrific firefight with every law enforcement agency within 100 miles, I think, was there. And one of the brothers was killed. The other brother escaped. How? I don't know. On Friday night, that second brother was found and captured. He was hiding in a boat in the backyard of somebody's house in Watertown. That brought an end to what was really an incredible week in Boston, where the subway was shut down, places of business were closed. The governor asked people in all of Boston and suburban Boston to stay inside. It was just a really remarkable period. So, having had a front row seat at this week, 5 days of incredible events, we all realized that there was a lot to be desired with how everyone used and social media and communicated on websites and via social media during a huge emergency like this. And we realized that lessons that we learned and problems that arose that ultimately we possibly could solve could help everyone, no matter what the emergency they're facing, whether it's a hurricane, a tornado, dust storms, floods, wildfires, whatever it is. So McCormick gave O&A a grant to study that specific issue using the Boston Marathon as a case study. We held a workshop at the Globe, all-day workshop. The first part of the workshop, we invited about 10 or 11 public safety and medical officials to come talk to us about their experience during that week. What was gratifying was I found out later that that was the first time that they had gotten together to do sort of a post-mortem, pardon the expression, of their what they experienced during the marathon. They certainly had held those sessions within their own organizations, but Boston Police hadn't talked to the people from Mass General, and so they were very happy to come and talk about this. And when the panel was over, they were thrilled. It was very interesting. Some of them, particularly the law enforcement agencies, already were pretty media savvy, social media savvy. They were using their Twitter accounts. Boston Police particularly use their Twitter accounts very, very effectively. The hospitals, not so much, because the hospitals aren't so much of a public organizations that would be disseminating information to the public. It doesn't matter how social media savvy you were, all of them were stunned. They were just caught by surprise by the absolute flood of, first of all, information that was being put out, not just by news organizations, but by ordinary people, some of which just had no basis in fact. They also were stunned by the amount of Facebook posts on their organization's accounts and tweets that were being tweeted to them, some of which, one of their frustrations was that they couldn't verify the tweets that were coming into them. Somebody would be tweeting because phone systems were down, their email systems crashed. So people were turning to social media to try to find information. So they would tweet at, say, Beth Israel or Brigham and Women's and say, my sister, I think, is at your hospital. Can you tell me her condition? Well, there's patient confidentiality, and they're not going to do that, first of all. And secondly, they realized, how do we verify these accounts? So that was one big issue for them. Another one was to manage the stream. What sort of filters could they use? And another issue was how could they disseminate information, maybe collectively as a group, more effectively, so that the public was better informed, and so that the news media was better informed as well. So they talked about things like, boy, wouldn't it be great if there was almost like a central repository, a central stream, where official and verified accounts, are displayed. So those were some of the issues that arose from the panel of first responders, which we had in the morning. The next step at the workshop was we invited, I think probably about a dozen community members who had answered a survey. We asked them, what was it like for you, and what was your use of social media? That was very different from the first responders panel because it was much more personal, much more intimate. They were concerned about, first of all, where is this happening in relationship to where I am now? Am I in any danger? What about my relatives and friends who I know work in Back Bay near the finish line? Are they okay? Oh my God, I know 15 people who are watching the marathon, and the last I heard they were going to try to get close to the finish line. I don't know if they did or not. How can I find out if they're okay? We were broken into 6 groups, and we started saying, okay, taking what we know as journalists, having gone through that experience, what the first responders said, and what the community members said, let's start tossing some ideas around. What are the needs here? So we brainstormed, we identified needs. Then we started throwing ideas up on Post-it notes. If you've ever been at one of these sessions, it's sort of the classic thing to do. Just throw ideas up on the wall on Post-it notes. And then you start looking at them and you start saying, well, these are all similar. You group them together. And then, slowly something starts to emerge as a possible product or a possible process or a tool that you could use. The point of today and during the whole conference exactly is to take all 6 ideas and throw them into the Midway, into a particular area of the Midway where people can go this afternoon or even tomorrow and say, this one was a really good idea. How about if we just turn it this way a little bit and maybe it would be a better idea? Or I want to start from scratch. I have this other great idea. And we have people here who will help you through that process. So at the end of it, sometime down the road, we hope to have some sort of a solid recommendation for something. A couple of things were confirmed for me. One was the value of the official law enforcement and medical community Twitter accounts, for example, that despite the fact that at first they were so surprised, they did an unbelievably wonderful job in keeping the public informed, keeping the media informed, and correcting misinformation. They did an absolutely terrific job. That was confirmed for me. The other thing that was confirmed for me is that I think we in the journalism field are much harder on ourselves when we make mistakes than the public is. And I learned this back in 1999 when John Kennedy Jr.'s plane went down on its way from Hyannis to Martha's Vineyard. 1999. I had moved over from the Globe to Boston.com just about 3 months before, and we were doing live updates in a particular breaking news box on the homepage, writing off TV. And I remember at a certain time during that week, 2 news organizations, I'm not going to name them because I can't remember precisely and I don't want to get it wrong, but 2 extremely large, reputable news organizations both reported that the bodies had been located on the ocean floor and were being recovered. About 2 hours later, they both announced, sorry, that information was incorrect. We did the same thing. So-and-so and so-and-so have now said that the bodies have not been found, etc. We did not get a single complaint from the public. Not a single complaint. Nobody said, hey, you said they were found and then you said they weren't. Not a single one. And it's because they understand. They understand that we're a broadcast medium. They understand that, you know, this is an overused expression, but they're watching the sausage being made. And so it was verified again during the marathon bombings. Sure, people don't like it when we put out misinformation. They don't like it when, you know, we say, as we did, that a suspect was in custody amid conflicting reports, is the caveat that we put on it. They don't like that. But they're not yelling and screaming and, you know, beating their breasts and, you know, everything about it. So that was verified for me. I would just say that I hope that people do help us continue this process and come up with tools that could help everyone in the future, the next time a big disaster strikes.